It's Tuesday, September 24, 2024. This is CVM News at noon. I'm Nika Lewis. The government is ramping up its pushback against the Integrity Commission's report on Prime Minister Andrew Holness's statutory declarations. At Tuesday's Oversight Committee meeting, Labour Minister Pernil Charles Jr. called for the IC's commissioners to be summoned, questioning whether there was perhaps malicious intent behind the report.
Clearly you see the inclusion of things intended to harm the declarant rather than to seek justice. These are matters that we have to explore because it is highly inappropriate, in my view, for an investigation to be completed and for there to now be an effort to redetermine the matter.
That redetermination refers to the Integrity Commission's decision to send the Prime Minister's financials to the Tax Administration of Jamaica TAJ and the Financial Investigations Division FID for further investigation into claims of illicit enrichment.
Section 7 of the Integrity Commission Act speaks directly to cooperation between other bodies and agreement and arrangements, and it allows the Commission in the performance of its functions to cooperate with any person or body that it may deem appropriate, including those bodies that it is now seeking to redetermine this matter that it itself has concluded. It's either that the IC is turning against itself or that you have a situation here that is exposing itself as being a matter of corruption.
Latest politician speaking out against the soon-to-be-had by-election in Northeast St. Anne is the president of the PNP Women's Movement. Patricia Duncan Sutherland says the Prime Minister's perceived lack of care will give the PNP the edge at the polls when the general elections are called. More in this report. September 30, the people of Northeast St. Anne will have their by-election. And for many, like the people of South Trelawney, long demanding representation, it's a privilege they now hope to have. Those in St. Anne were seemingly calm, but only after several fiery protests, pleading for a new representative and accusing their recently resigned Member of Parliament, Marcia Smith, of doing little for them. However, the opposition is not contesting that by-election, and the women of the PNP are accusing the Prime Minister of abuse of power in how the announcement was handled.
I think the by-election that has been called by the Prime Minister is a direct abuse of power. So he has been given the power to call the election. He has had an outstanding by-election to be called in South Trelawney for over a year. He has had one in St. Thomas for over 4 months for the local government. And there is also another one that was resignation came before this from Nigel Clark. But on the day that the resignation comes from young Smith, he immediately calls a by-election. It's clearly an abuse of power, and it really will not work. It speaks to us needing a constitutional reform to really have a conversation about fixed election dates and putting some guardrails around this.
Much like her party leader, she told the CVM News recently outside the national arena that regardless of the strategy employed by the governing JLP, the PNP will regain power.
We are ready. I know that he intends to call a series of by-elections to try to get some groundswell. I am very clear with the way that he treats the Jamaican people, him Andrew Holness as the Prime Minister, his government, the lack of care, the lack of concern for what their life is really like. People are now ready for a new government, for a PNP government that cares and loves people. We are loving action.
Only recently, there have been protests in the Morant Bay Division, calls from people in South Trelawney and other areas for representatives either dead or absent to be replaced. In other news now, Caribbean Maritime Awareness Week is off to a great start as the Caribbean Maritime University announced its latest advancement in establishing a new campus in the region. University President Professor Andrew Spence explains the development will allow Jamaica to establish itself as a major player in logistics education on a region-wide scale. Courtney Lewis shares the university's latest strides.
New opportunities are on the horizon for students in the region looking to enter the maritime and logistics field as the Caribbean Maritime University partners with the Suriname Maritime Institute to establish a new campus. University President Professor Andrew Spencer says the university has much to give and gain from establishing a campus in Suriname.
It is located in a space that's close to Guyana. Suriname also has its own onshore oil, but it is now exploring offshore oil development as well, in much the same way that Guyana and Trinidad would have done so. And we have expertise in those areas. The CMU has always had a program in liquefied petroleum operations, in chemical tanker operations. We have what these destinations require.
The campus will also facilitate courses for international accreditation for students to apply their skills in the global market starting November this year.
We are providing the STCW courses for the International Maritime Organization that will enable someone to ply their trade anywhere in the world. And we've seen the fruit of this because our students, 80% of our students, get high-paying, reputable jobs within 6 months of graduation. So the world is ready to absorb CMU graduates, and now we're going to have CMU graduates coming out of Suriname.
Minister of Education Favour Williams stood in full support of the collaboration, encouraging students to step out of the box when choosing their careers.
A maritime career can be a lucrative career as well, with substantial financial and personal growth. And over the years, we've seen many Jamaicans in the maritime industry build prosperous careers, both locally and internationally.
She maintained in her address that the partnership proves beneficial for the education sector as well as economic development.
By opening up, we're talking about students being able to access, to gain the knowledge, so that they have the opportunity to work in an industry that, just the numbers alone will tell you that there are many jobs available, many different types of jobs, many high-skilled jobs. And if you look at the remuneration in that industry, it stands higher than most.
The university president further assured that the partnership, through its modular program approach, will address regional low-hanging fruits such as training and certification and port management.
Jamaica is positioned not only because we're in the 7th largest natural harbor in the world, but we're positioned because of the mental strength and acuity of the Caribbean Maritime University to take this country and the region forward.
Courtney Lewis for CVM News.
Do stay with us. CVM News at noon continues after this break.
SuperMed Family of Pharmacies, your trusted partner in health and wellness for over 30 years. With 8 convenient pharmacies across Eastern Jamaica. SuperMed Mall Pharmacy, SuperMed New Kingston, SuperMed Pepine, SuperMed Port Antonio Pharmacies 1 and 2, Claire's St. Mary, Lloyd's St. Thomas, and a convenient drive-through at our Hughenden location where you can get your medication without leaving your car. We're dedicated to providing you with the highest level of care. Experience the difference with SuperMed Family of Pharmacies. Super happy, super healthy.
And you go, darling. Have a good day. Blessing. SuperMed.
Tune in for our special lead story series, Monday to Wednesday at 8 p.m. for Education in Focus. Join George Davis and guests as they discuss all concerns affecting the sector. It's a special lead story series, September 23 to 25 at 8 p.m. See it happen here on CVM.
One step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music is a playing and the people them I say we are my show tonight.
Welcome back. We now continue the news. Lecturer in the Department of Education at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Dion Carr, is raising concern that Jamaica is not producing enough quality matriculants who will be filtered into the teaching profession. Speaking on a special edition of Lead Story, Education in Focus, Carr says this reality is impacting examination results.
The situation we're now facing is not as simple as we can identify individual variables and fix those. I think we have to take a comprehensive look at the system in terms of what the inputs are and what the processes are of those inputs. And invariably, we're seeing what the outputs are, right? So if we start with teacher quality, as my colleague said from Manchester, one of the things we'll recognize is that there is the situation with many of our teachers leaving.
Yes.
However, the question is, who are we getting into the system to train? So if we have 18% of our students obtaining 5 CSEC, including math and English, that's about 6,000 students. The question is, where do we get the personnel from to teach out of that 6,000? Because we're talking about 6,000 qualified persons now for the police force,
Yes.
for teachers,
Yes.
to go to university,
Yes.
go to NCU, and wherever else they choose to go, or simply to be in employment. So the question is that the output is not enough at this point in time
Yes.
to create the kind of inputs we need into the system.
Yes.
And to me, that's one of the first places to look.
Estate planning between spouses is critical in determining how assets will be preserved, managed, and distributed after death or separation. Joining Sunrise this morning to speak on the matter was Administrator General and CEO for the Administrator General's Department, the AGD, Stacey Carthy.
Person who has a marriage certificate. That person will come, present it, you're the spouse, whether man or woman.
Right.
The intricacy comes up when you were not married, right? So the person comes to us and said, oh, Dennis and I were in a relationship, he's the father of my 3 children. And we said 2 things. Oh, but TK already came with a marriage certificate.
Where you going, lady? Where you
correct,
going?
because he can only have 1 spouse.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have that happening not infrequently at the office, and that can have a lot of spin-offs, but spouse is only the married person, or if the person was unmarried.
So
Let me just say 1 second. If the
Yeah.
person was unmarried,
Yeah.
and you can prove that
how you prove
when
it?
the person died, 5 years before the person died, you were living together as man and wife, and both of you were single. Very important that both of you have to be single. So if the gentleman or woman was married but separated, person's gone foreign, whatever, you haven't seen them in ages, you're not single. So you can't then apply to be that person's spouse. You have to be single. So you have to go to the court and you have to show the judge that your lives were so intertwined. You had maybe joint bank accounts. The person held you out, you went out together, everybody knows you as being together in a relationship. But let me tell you why I'm going to stress that the person must be single. It isn't infrequent that persons come and say, oh, but Dennis and I have been living together, and then the spouse also shows up. So we have counselors who can sit down with you to explain, okay, we spoke about reporting a death last week, and we have 4 form of particulars with 4 completely different families stated on each of them. You're going to have to go to the court, so we direct